So we've been receiving a lot of replays from some of the gold players in the community, and after going through a few of these matches, it really started to pose the question for us, what is the most common mistake that these players make in lower ranks that is causing them to lose games? And at the end of the day, all players are different. There's not one thing that all gold players need to work on to hit platinum, and there's no secret. But I can say for sure after viewing a number of gold games, there are a few things that stick out to me as overall bad habits that result in them losing more games. Today what I wanted to do is use one of the games I did a VoD review for on the website to give you an idea of what some of those habits might be, to hopefully give you all perspective on how you can improve and climb in rank. Unfortunately, this particular VoD I had some audio issues and I won't be able to post the full thing. Love that. But we were able to save some parts for the video, and if you'd like to see other VoD reviews just like this, those will all be available on the website, so be sure to check those out. So there are three main things I wanted to talk about today from this game specifically that I see in so many other replays submitted. And a lot of that has to do with understanding how a high rank player will look at the map versus how a gold rank player will look at the map. The first one we're going to go into today though is rotations and taking space. And I think I did a really good job of explaining this during the VoD review, so I'm going to let past me explain this for you now. So say we all rotate through B. Oh, this is perfect. Yeah, like everyone, you guys have no mid control right now. Your guy just died in mid. What do you have to worry about coming in here that you wouldn't have to worry about otherwise, right? The answer, obviously, is going to be the mid control, right? If I'm approaching here for a retake and we don't have mid control, I have to worry about people being in this entire area when I come for this retake, right? They could be here, they could be in mid, they could be here, and off of that Omen ulti, now they could be in kitchen too. This retake is impossible. Like, just straight up. Mathematically, it's not likely at all that you win this unless they play it terribly. So I'll let this play out. Maybe it's one of those situations where they absolutely play it terribly and you win, but I'm assuming you guys are going to get crushed right here. There's the Omen in our spawn. He just killed Sage. Now you guys have to worry about being pinched. Notice you're pre-aiming mid.
Spike planted.
You have no idea if they're in sight or not.
Still in sight.
Raze is taking the duel on flank. Right there. Now you're dinged.
He's behind
Where's this
yellow.
Raze gonna go? There's no mid control. She ulted in the middle of nowhere. Right, let's see how awkward this is for you guys. You have to worry about kitchen. There's no way you guys are landing this retake. But if you guys come through middle instead, you might take a duel here, which is like scary. I know, like oh my god, it's a duel. But if you can clear out mid, you can come in through here and you can clear this out more easily because you don't have to worry about yellow. It just makes this infinitely easier. Maybe you can even come through kitchen, clear out kitchen. There's no way this retake is happening. The big point I'm trying to illustrate here, given the context of the game, is that if you choose to take a rotation through spawn on really any map, it doesn't matter if it's Icebox or Split or even Fracture, if you choose to take the rotation through spawn, you're basically just giving the enemy team a ton of space for free. Because of the route his team took to rotate, they literally made it so the retake was impossible. This isn't even the only time his team did this. Take a look at this round from offense where a very similar thing happens.
Bomb buddy out.
He's in this Roomba in mid. I would capitalize on this. Wow. Like, this Roomba just got so much info pushed in. It's like a drone, you know? You could have thrown this blind up as the recon or the Roomba was going through. Push underneath with it.
Still in sight.
Clearly, I know that you wanted to lurk, but clearly you're not lurking. Your entire team's pushing through. And like, you don't need to all walk through too. You're all funneling through here. It's like you're afraid. This Roomba already cleared underneath. It cleared all of this space, right? It bounced off this wall, came back around here. There could be a dude here, but if there is, your team's going to swing him from here, and you're going to swing him from here, and he's going to die, you know?
Nightmare's over.
And the Omen's dead.
Cutting their vision.
And you guys are wrapping around here.
That's somewhere over here.
Once again, notice the space that's uncleared. You have this like awkward portion of space that you guys don't know if somebody's here anymore, because you let the Roomba run through, but if like somebody's hiding here, they just dodged it, and now they're coming through here. Right? Like, they could be underneath you when you drop in. There could be, like, currently, do you understand this crossfire? There could be a guy here, there could be a guy here, and there could be a guy here, a guy here, you know? Because you guys didn't clear any of this. You're about to, like, you see these arrows? You see how scary this is to enter on? I don't want to enter through there.
Under, Sage under, Sage under.
Oh, God, I love that.
Two on site. CT and Sage under.
I hadn't seen this round of the game, by the way. This is just like, this is what I see when I look at the map. And what I see is that there were so many angles that were uncleared. Literally, like, there's a guy here and there's a guy here, like, actually. You see how good this round could have been, and instead you just kind of like you put
might be
yourself
on
in a
top of two.
situation where instead of taking the space that you were kind of given, you just didn't, and now you're all pushing through kitchen awkwardly, and like there's no territory.
30
gained
seconds
here.
left.
I really hope you are starting to get an idea of how much of an impact these things can actually have on a round. Seemingly, our hero in these clips just doesn't really want to take fights in places where it's absolutely worth it for him to take fights. And because of this, it ends up in a really awkward situation in these rounds where his team has to push into these absurd crossfires to actually win. And all of this has to do with his decisions of where to move. This is why it's almost always so necessary to occupy mid control on these maps, because if you have mid control, it gives your team faster rotates, and not only that, but easier rotates, or in the offensive situation, site takes. Compare this to a map like Ascent, where instead of retaking B from Market and CT, you retake B from exclusively CT. This means that you need to deal with a potential crossfire from Market, but also from B main and Site and Speedway. You see how nearly impossible this sort of crossfire can be to deal with? But if you retake from Market and CT, you make it so all of the gunfights are at the very least in front of you, so you can make things a lot easier to deal with. Rotations were just a small part of the issue though, and this is a concept most players, even in Immortal, still don't understand. But the big thing that will help players climb out of literally any rank is understanding how to play around their teammates, and that is just something that I never see from any players in Gold at all. It seems like very much players in Gold are pretty frequently okay solo players and have the capabilities of clutching up in a 1v2 or even a 1v3, and even sometimes they have decent aim. But they treat it much like they're playing a solo game and will almost never position in a spot where they can actually play off of their teammates. As we did before, let's take a look around that I broke down from the VoD, where he is just absolutely playing a position that doesn't help anyone on his team at all. So right now, this Viper wall separates you from your entire team, right? So you're going to take a duel here off of nobody's contact. And your enemies, when I see this Viper wall as an enemy, what I see is like this space is open for taking right now, because this Viper wall is going to isolate everybody over here. So as a defender, I'm about to swing this. I'm only going to swing this. I'm going to clear this corner. Now your Raze is taking contact. You can't help her here. You're not going to take contact here. See how everything is like changing constantly, and it's like your team can't help you. Where you're aiming at right now, you can't get peeked on from. You literally cannot get peeked from this angle because your Raze is currently holding this. Until your Raze dies, you're not going to peek from here. So the least you could do, pick up this angle or like back up and play with these guys, you know, like bait this Raze entirely. This is probably the biggest thing that I would comment for players to improve upon, because it's actually honestly the biggest thing that holds players back. You just need to be able to recognize when you're baiting your teammates, and I hope that this next clip can give you an idea of how to look for these things. Starts, notice again, you're taking a very far back position compared to what your team is doing. This Jet's playing up here, kind of looking for like an early pick. You want to be there to help her. Play like right here or something. You could play up in nest if you wanted to. You could even, again, play up on top of pipes. There's a lot of things you can do here that you're just not. Because your Jet's going to die before you do anything. This is the biggest thing, like, biggest red flag in your games. If this Jet is in a position where she is going to die before you do anything, you're kind of in the wrong spot, right? Unless the whole plan is to, like, bait her.
One mid.
And the funny thing is, it doesn't actually end when you start to realize when you're baiting your teammates, because now you're going to start realize when you're the one being baited. And as I say in this next clip, it'll start to frustrate you and you'll start to adapt to it. Notice how annoying this is, right? I want you to actually look at this. What is your Sage doing to help you right now? You're going to start noticing these things more now that like after I've gone through this, and you start realizing how actually like frustrating this is. Your Sage is doing nothing right now. She's absolutely baiting you. You should be upset about this. If you're Reyna right now, you should be upset that your Sage is not doing anything in this round currently. Could be mid helping the Raze, your teammates over on B doing nothing, but she is just chilling here. Anyways, I hope that you're starting to get the point of how to spot these things, and basically the biggest question you should ask yourself is, what am I currently doing in this position? And if you can't come up with a good answer, then you're probably playing a bad spot. Moving on to our last thing though, and that's right, you guessed it, the last thing I felt really worth mentioning that stuck out to me was just crosshair placement. Sometimes this came down to team play where players would just aim at things that their teammates were already covering, or sometimes it was literally just their crosshair sitting in the middle of nowhere. The thing I want to say though is that there's no such thing as a gold with great crosshair placement. It just doesn't exist. There's probably not even diamonds with great crosshair placement. It's a skill that takes active attention and experience to perfect. This was a specific round where I noticed his crosshair placement was just a bit wonky, and unfortunately this is one of the rounds where his audio wasn't great, but I'll try to give the best parts of the audio. left like better, but you guys seem very... That's right. Okay, let's look at your crosshair placement again right here. Where are you ever aiming, right? This is a huge thing right now. Where's somebody gonna be? So first of all, like we commented, where are enemies? Where they can approach you from? Omen just ulted up here. Weird. They could swing you here. They could swing you on that side of yellow, this side of yellow. They can't come here right now because your Viper's right here, right? So nobody's gonna come along. So you just have to worry about right side yellow and left side yellow. You're just constantly like waving your crosshair around. Like you're aiming at the center of yellow. You're aiming at long, kind of. Like there's no reason for so many of these things. You have to think about, like, with professional players, everything they do is intentional. Every movement with their mouse, every movement with their agent, all of their utility usage it's intentional. And right now, nothing you're doing feels intentional. It feels like you're panicked and you don't know what to do. So you're just kind of waving your mouse around. When you look up here, kill that dude, and then you look away for some reason. Why are you looking away? The angle is already covered. Your jet's already watching this angle. I don't know why you flicked to the center of yellow. There's no reason for you to aim there. There's just not at all.
Enemy spotted B.
As you can see, his crosshair placement is just completely all over the place given what is going on in the round, and the point I'm trying to make here is his teammates were covering angles for him, so he doesn't need to be swinging his mouse around so much. And sometimes we speak in the third person when we make these videos because obviously this is Royalty's perspective that was submitted, but if you're watching this video, I want you to recognize I'm talking to you. You need to fix these things. Royalty submitted this VoD, sure, but chances are that you have these issues and it's up to you to fix them. We can't fix them for you. Like I said though, unfortunately the audio got messed up from this full VoD review, but we have other reviews just like this one in full available on the website. So if you wanted to check those out, be sure to check out skillcapped.com, link in the description below. I hope this gave you all a perspective on the things that you should be looking to improve upon in gold, and maybe why you're struggling to climb to the higher ranks. There really is a lot more nuance to the game other than just shooting people, and at the end of the day, all of these things I told you about today are meant to make it easier for you to land your shots. If you were all just aimbots, positioning and game sense wouldn't really matter. You'd just be able to click heads better. But you're not all aimbots, and game sense is important. Do these things and I guarantee you'll hit diamond in no time. As always, my name is King, and we here at SkillCapped want to thank you all for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.